Every moment of Sabalenka and Eala's courtside explosion was caught on camera. What started out as a close rally will live on in tennis history. The entire game was changed by one outburst, one glance, and one line call. The crowd gasped, the chaos was captured on microphones, and neither player gave up. Under pressure, Sabalenka's fury and Eala's disobedience collide. Points were no longer the main consideration. It is related to pride. Behind every serve and every glance was something deeper, something seething under the surface. When security stepped in, it was too late. The entire world had witnessed it. In just a few minutes, videos go popular on the internet. Fans were divided, and legends spoke up. Nowadays, everyone is asking the same question. What actually happened at the courtside that day? It began long before the detonation. Long before the audience screamed and the headlines took over. The rivalry between Alexandra Eala, a young player eager to establish herself in the same elite field, and Aryna Sabalenka, the current dominant force in women's tennis, has been simmering quietly match after match and glance after glance. Sabalenka was known for being a fierce player who played with unwavering strength and enthusiasm. Her roar might shake a stadium. Her gaze has the power to silence a camera. She was not just a competitor. She was fierce. Eala, on the other hand, represented serenity, composure, and accuracy. She was a rising star who embodied the goals of a new generation, and her game was built on discipline and perseverance. Where Sabalenka blazed furiously, time stopped. Their paths initially crossed on the journey, and they exchanged a quick handshake. But those who witnessed it realized that something unsaid had started there. Maybe it was the disparate personalities. Maybe it was because Sabalenka's bullets roared past her and I did not flinch. Or maybe there were rumors that the next big thing in tennis will come from the Philippines. The old guard did not scare her either. Let's fast forward to this high-stakes game, which will take place in a packed stadium with dim lighting. Legends are either created or destroyed by this kind of night. Sabalenka was the favorite, but that didn't stop them. Reporters noticed how calm she appeared during warm-ups. The first few games were exciting, with her coach's words echoing from the sidelines. Breathe, just play your game, every rally has a purpose. Every stroke seemed to convey a message, and the sound of the ball striking the strings seemed heavier and harsher. However, Sabalenka was not like that. Instead, she was pacing and complaining to herself. Sabalenka appeared uneasy for the first match after Eala broke her serve early. A flash of rage, a clenched fist. It was sensed by the audience. The storm was approaching. Commentators began to whisper about their disagreement. The statement, "There is no love lost here," tightened the score. "It's palpable. This is private." Sweat shone in the lights. Eala's calm confidence infuriated Sabalenka even more. A dangerous combo for someone who manipulates emotions. As I passed Sabalenka during a changeover, their shoulders nearly brushed, and the look was caught on camera. Sabalenka turned, her jaw tight and her eyes cold. That look and that one act of disobedience would be the spark that ignited everything, even if the audience was not aware of it at the time. When the chair umpire called time, both women had returned to the court with something more substantial than skill or strategy. It was no longer just tennis. Pride, reputation, and emotion mingled under the lights. And just a few seconds remained until the explosion. It happened quite fast. The kind of thing that defines rivalry for all time. The score in the second set was 43. Tension that permeates the atmosphere like static. Eala was serving, her gaze calm and her rhythm flawless. But Sabalenka was furious, shrugging her shoulders, walking between points, and glaring at her opponent as though her eyes could break her. Then it happened. The phone conversation. Eala's serve crossed the boundary. A scorching ace down the tee. As soon as the audience began to scream, Sabalenka's hand shot up. "Out!" she shouted. At the referee. She had an incredulous look on her face. The chair umpire gave a cool but cautious shake of his head. It was an amazing ball. For a minute, there was silence. That dangerous silence before chaos. Sabalenka stepped closer to the net and argued with a powerful voice. It was gone. Everybody saw it. Eala stood on her baseline, motionless. She merely stared back, her eyes cold and far away. The catalyst was that Sabalenka hated being ignored, especially in the context of the court. She turned to look at Eala. "Do you think that was in?" Eala finally answered, her voice soft yet piercing. The umpire made the call. "Take part in play." The audience gasped not because of what she said, but rather because of how she delivered it. She appeared calm and in control of the circumstance. Sabalenka's jaw stiffened. Her face was the focus of the cameras. The audience muttered as Sabalenka swung her racket frustratedly through the air, missing the ball she would put up to serve next. Something was unraveling, and you could feel the energy changing as commentators tried to stay awake. Next was the serve, in which Eala threw the ball high and hit it perfectly in the same place. Another ace. Sabalenka did not challenge this time. She is letting her feelings control her, according to one. The next point was won by Sabalenka using a forehand. But as Eala passed, their shoulders came into contact once more. But this time, Sabalenka entirely turned to face her. She shouted, "Watch where you are walking." Eala didn't falter. Instead, then focusing on the player, focus on the ball. After dropping her racket, Sabalenka approached Eala and said something that the microphones only partially recorded. "Calm down," the umpire said as he stepped up, not on the court yet, but closer with phones out and cameras shooting from every angle. The audience was buzzing and trying to capture the moment when the composure broke. The coach even got up and gestured for her to back off, but she remained motionless, standing just a few meters apart. Two players, one motivated by defiance and the other by anger, refused to blink. The final spark came when the umpire called a code violation. Verbal abuse. Miss Sabalenka, the world's best player, Aryna Sabalenka, snapped just as the cameras were rolling from every angle. Eala's jaw tightened as she turned away, but it was too late. The game had become a struggle of ego rather than competence. In a matter of minutes, the stadium erupted into chaos with cheers, applause, and alcohol. Nobody was aware of their stance. Both fan phone video and slow-motion replays from broadcast cameras show the same event. Aryna Sabalenka surged at Alexa and shouted over the net as cops raced to restore order. The internet doesn't wait for explanations. It generates its own. Hashtags like #ElaVabalenka and #TennisBreakdown shot to the top of Twitter in less than an hour. It was called desire by some, dishonor by others. "This isn't competition, it's chaos," a fan wrote. "What became of sportsmanship?" Another said, "What makes Sabalenka great is her fire. Don't make her a bad person." It wasn't just fans, though. Journalists, analysts, and past players all jumped in. The legendary tennis player Chris once tweeted, "Respect should never leave the court, but emotions are part of the game." In the meantime, the headline, "Eala stands tall," became viral thanks to a sports blogger. Not even Sabalenka could divert her attention. The anxiety only increased back at the competition. The camera focused on both benches during the subsequent changeover. In an attempt to ground Sabalenka, her coach leaned forward and said desperately. Alice did not even look across the court as she sat calmly with a towel over her head. Before another storm, there was silence. The Reaper then appeared. On the enormous screen. The hump on the shoulder. As the scene replayed, the audience exploded. The brilliance of Sabalenka. Eala gasped as she walked past calmly. Alcohol. Celebrate. The arena was split in half. To quiet the crowd, the umpire had to halt the game twice. Sabalenka once yelled something about respect at the throng. The emotion was obvious even though the microphones didn't capture it well. She was now battling perception and the dread of being portrayed as the aggressor rather than just Eala. Eala, meanwhile, turned her poise into a weapon. Fans remarked that Eala seemed to get more composed and unflinching every time Sabalenka lost her fury. After a heated disagreement, Eala was seen returning to her chair in a widely shared TikTok video with the remark, when calm is louder than chaos. It received over 1 million views in a matter of hours. The incident was repeatedly aired on sports stations. Commentators argued over who went too far. "We've seen Sabalenka emotional before, but this feels different," one anchor remarked. During the post-match press conference, Sabalenka said in a strained voice, "I am emotional, yeah, but I am human," which only fueled the flames. "It feels like a personal matter. Everyone occasionally loses control." Eala's statement, however, struck a different chord. Calm, exact, practically surgical. "I'm here to play tennis. What takes place beyond the points? I'll let others make that decision." It was the quotation that people all across the world heard. Fans interpreted the video as a veiled jab after it was aired on many networks. A subtle way of expressing that Eala had retained her spirit whereas Sabalenka had lost herself. In the digital equivalent of a divided stadium, Team Eala and Team Sabalenka were trending side by side by the following morning. The match had outgrown the plot. Whether they wanted it or not, it was now a movement, and both women had come to represent something much greater than tennis. The tennis world was in disarray the morning following the explosion. The score didn't make headlines. They have to do with the occurrence. It was featured prominently in every major outlet. Sabalenka becomes uncontrollable. Eala steals the show with her composed resistance. Social media was inundated with videos from every angle. Reaction memes, slow-motion edits, and comments from those who hadn't even watched the game. Everyone had an opinion, and each one offered more. For Aryna Sabalenka, it was a living nightmare. Her group made an effort to control the damage. No amount of public relations could drown out the cacophony, despite statements, explanations, and controlled interviews. Concerns regarding her behavior on the court were voiced in private by a few sponsors. An planned campaign starring her was even put on hold by one business. This was unusual for a player who was renowned for her strength and control. Her tennis was no longer the focus. It has to do with her fury. Even Sabalenka attempted to minimize it. She stated, "I play with emotion," in a post-match interview. "That's me. I didn't go too far. I responded right away." However, fans weren't persuaded. The video showed her approaching Eala while yelling and with fiery eyes. It had a narrative of its own. Eala's silence, meanwhile, served to emphasize the story. Beyond her brief remark, she declined to comment. No interviews, no social media posts, and no responses. Even though Eala hadn't started the altercation, her coach was reportedly called by tournament officials to discuss sportsmanship issues, despite the fact that her silence and self-control transformed her into something more powerful than a winner. She became the calm in the storm, a symbol of poise, dignity, and quiet strength. In order to seem impartial and to demonstrate that they were treating all players fairly, the organizers faced pressure. It was the kind of politics that takes place in private. A brief statement was issued by the Women's Tennis Association. "We remind every athlete of the expectations for behavior on the court. We welcome passion. Disrespect isn't." It didn't name anyone, but everyone knew who it was directed at. For Sabalenka, it hurt because she had spent years building her reputation as a fighter rather than a villain. Now, every camera followed her in a different way, analyzing every match to look for signs of another outburst during her next appearance. Even a frustrated racket drop caused the crowd to gasp. For Eala, on the other hand, her fan base exploded overnight, with tens of thousands of new followers. Articles praised her as T, but celebrity also brought with it pressure. The player who dealt with Sabalenka was suddenly the epitome of poise. However,